Charli D'Amelio at one point became the largest creator on TikTok, and her family absolutely capitalized on this and tried to turn a teenager's TikTok fame into a full-blown business empire. But years later, Charli, who started it all, I guess is walking away from the whole family and allegedly only keeping contact through attorneys. Which has me sitting here wondering, will there be a lot of similarities between, I don't know, the TikTok teenager stars and their parents as there was Disney stars and their parents and even early musicians and their parents, or just in general, people who became famous when they weren't 18 and then, you know, had their parents run their stuff for them. But with this case, there's absolutely been some signs that maybe the work relationship in the family came before the actual family part of being the family. It just becomes problematic when your parents are also your boss and they are monetizing your persona, which then opens up that slippery slope and a weird dynamic of, okay, are you a boss first or are you parent first? Do you actually want what's best for your child or do you want what's going to profit the most money? Obviously, this is nothing more than speculation, but there were some early signs with this just a few years ago because I covered this family like 5 years ago with this video. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that all of this is now unfolding, but here we are. So if you don't know who Charli D'Amelio is, back in 2019, she was just a teenager from Connecticut posting dance videos on TikTok. And most influencers spent years trying to become famous, but Charli kind of tripped and fell into it. Like, she started posting these dance videos for fun, her clips began taking off, and within a few months, she had become one of the fastest growing creators on the platform. And that growth became extremely ridiculous because in November of 2020, Charli became the first person in the world to reach 100 million followers on TikTok. So essentially, she was just a high school student who liked dancing, and when that happened, everything changed for her because Charli didn't just become famous, her entire family became famous. Her older sister, Dixie, she started posting content and quickly built a massive audience on her own. Then the whole family moved from Connecticut to California. They signed brand deals, they launched businesses, they starred in a Hulu family reality show called The D'Amelio Show, and suddenly, what had just started as a teenager making videos in her bedroom had become an entire family empire. And that's where this story gets a lot more complicated than your average influencer drama.
So what this is it's a look at your 2021. This is the major things we're focusing on, starting a clothing company. And then you have books and TV shows.
I just literally had no time to actually do anything, which is the thing that sucks.
And it seems like they were really putting the kids to work in this family because they had binders where production was planned out for the entire year. I feel like that would, I don't know, take away a little bit of the fun aspect from a teenager who started doing TikTok dance videos for fun. And I guess contrary to how some people are telling the story, Charli's parents weren't broke. Like, they seemed like they were pretty well off before all this even happened. Her dad, Mark, already had a long career in business before TikTok. Her mom, Heidi, apparently had worked as a model. The family seemed to be doing completely fine long before anyone knew what a D'Amelio was. But even if they weren't dependent on Charli when all this started, it's hard to argue the family's public fame didn't come from her. So without Charli, I feel like it's safe to say that there would be no Hulu show, no brand, or even, you know, a popcorn company. And there definitely wouldn't be an audience of millions of people that want to know what the D'Amelios are doing. But I guess the problem is when one person becomes the center of a family business, things get messy very quickly, to put it lightly. Especially when that one person is a teenager and, I don't know, should be having some sort of a childhood. But instead, they just built an entire creator business on top of her. And I say on top of her because a normal business is kind of like a triangle. A creator business is kind of like an upside down triangle, right? So, like, you know, normal business, you'll have like a CEO on the top, and then you'll have like, you know, COO and CFO and essentially like the management roles below. If the CEO is sick one day, the company's gonna keep running. On a creator business, right, you have the creator on the bottom, and then everyone is essentially stacked on top of the creator. So if the creator doesn't show up to make content that one day, they don't have content that day. The business essentially stops. So let's say if the creator just wants to go for a 1-month vacation, that will not work in the modern creator landscape unless they've pre-filmed so much content to essentially cover them for while they're gone. That's just the reality of a creator business. A creator business is essentially just a treadmill, and you kind of have to just pace yourself so you can do it for a long time. And if you're a teenager and they just shove you on this treadmill and they just ram up the speed as fast as possible, yeah, you're gonna burn out quickly.
I went downstairs and I stayed down there because I was like, everyone just needs to leave me alone for a second before I have a panic attack.
You're shaking.
I can't help it. I just feel like I'm nuts. I have no idea how to sit.
You're gonna do great.
I used to have like 10 to 15 huge panic attacks a day. Like, that's how bad it was. It's obviously still there. I obviously still struggle with it. There's no way to just like, poof, anxiety's gone.
And it's safe to say that pressure would become a major theme in the years that followed. As Charli's fame exploded, the family tried to navigate something that basically didn't have too much of a manual, because you haven't seen too many cases of this. Like, obviously you had the families that had kids who were, I guess, became pop stars, or the Nickelodeon actors, or Disney kids, and so on and so on. But Charli, she was the first in a generation of people who became global celebrities for essentially 10 to 15 second dance videos on social media. That is completely unheard of. Essentially, one day she was posting dance videos, and next she was appearing in commercials and attending red carpets. And eventually the family, as I mentioned earlier, got their own Hulu reality show. So this is where things get a little interesting, because if you go back and actually watch the D'Amelio show, it's actually kind of surprising how often the topic of pressure comes up, because while the show is supposed to, I guess, give viewers a look inside of the glamorous life of being a TikTok celebrity, there were definitely moments where Charli seemed completely overwhelmed by what her life had become. At one point, she said, "I am physically and mentally exhausted. It's work. It's my personal life. It's negative comments. It's school. It's content I make for myself. It's deliverables. It's meetings. It's interviews. It's everything." As I mentioned earlier, that treadmill was just turned up really fast. And again, remember, like, not even 2 years before, she was just a normal high school student. So, I mean, her being overwhelmed makes complete sense, because, you know, now not only is she still going to school, but they essentially just loaded up a full-time job on her on top of everything. Not only a full-time job, it's a full-time job that is a whole bunch of people's full-time jobs stacked on top of her. And there was one quote that really stood out, because she said, "If I wanted to quit, now they don't have a job. It's a lot to put on a person." So again, she's referencing the whole thing where, you know, the upside down triangle creator business, where the creators on the bottom, everyone's stacked on top. If she just quits, everyone here loses their job. And look, I'm not saying this is proof that anyone was exploiting her or anything like that, but it does tell us something important. Even during the height of her success, Charli was very aware that her career wasn't just her career anymore. There were employees, business deals, brand partnerships, and so on and so on. An entire ecosystem that had grown around her success. Meanwhile, publicly, the family seemed incredibly close. In interviews, Charli kept praising her parents and said there were nobody who worked harder to protect her than what they did, and her parents also openly talked about helping both Charli and Dixie through mental health struggles. Essentially, the family's image was built around being supportive, relatable, and unusually close for a group living under an internet microscope. Which is why I guess what happened next caught so many people off guard. Because I guess while all the fans were watching the TikToks and the red carpet appearances, things behind the scenes seemed to be changing. Because according to Mark D'Amelio, the problems that people are hearing about now actually started back in early 2025. And that's where the timeline starts getting real strange. Because from the outside, everything was looking great. Forbes estimated that Charli earned like $23.5 million in 2025 alone. I mean, this is just unfathomable money for most people. She was also making a leap from social media into traditional entertainment and landing a role on something called & Juliet on Broadway. But I guess behind the scenes, something was changing. So in late 2025, fans noticed that Charli and her parents no longer followed each other on Instagram. Oh no! So you know that is just a massive bombshell for the unemployed. The D'Amelios, they don't follow each other anymore. Obviously, that's kind of a nothing burger, but then things get a little bit more interesting when reports emerged that Charli had quietly separated herself from parts of the family's business empire. So according to TMZ, the process actually started in March 2025 and was fully completed by November of 2025. And in other words, while fans were busy, I guess, speculating in 2026, Charli had reportedly already been distancing herself from the family business for months. And I mean, if that's true, the public was basically the last to find out. So one of the businesses was Be Happy Snacks, the popcorn company launched by the D'Amelio family. And according to reports, Charli stopped promoting the product and just formally exited the company, while her parents and sister remained involved. And I guess what's funny is even after reports said she had left, her photos were still all over the company's website, which kind of makes sense because, you know, she's still the glue, the key part to that brand. So I don't think that brand is going to want to just, you know, erase her from the photos. I feel like more people will start asking questions then. But that does put her in a weird predicament. Like, imagine leaving your family business and then still being the face of the homepage. Because I guess in May of 2026, allegations surfaced claiming the fallout wasn't really about the popcorn at all. Apparently it was about the money, because allegedly on May 30th, 2026, a gossip account called Dumoy published claims from, I guess, unnamed sources alleging that Charli had discovered millions of dollars had been transferred out of her accounts that had been established while her career was being managed by her parents. Allegedly, this money was supposed to be intended to be Charli's savings. And the reports also claimed that the dispute had caused a major rift within the family, and that Dixie had sided with the parents. And then it went on to say, in quote, her parents treated her like a cash cow. This is a teenager who was taken advantage of for money by her already rich parents, leaving her aggressively and massively hated online for having the maturity of a teenager. And Mark D'Amelio did not stay quiet. Almost immediately, he jumped into the comments and publicly denied the claims. He wrote, "Nobody called me for an interview. This is not true. We love Charli, but she is being manipulated and I have the receipts." And I guess if that wasn't dramatic enough, he followed it up by saying there is nothing to say except the report is 100% not true. So I guess at this point, you might think that Mark's strategy would be to stop talking, but instead, he went live on TikTok.
All I want to do is I'm going to protect my name and protect when people talk about me, and it's not happening. So, and everybody knows who they are, and I have the receipts.
And honestly, some of the things he said during that live stream are probably the most important pieces of information that we have for the entire story, because Mark presented a completely different explanation for what was happening. Because according to him, Charli was distancing herself because someone else was influencing her.
She hasn't reached out to me, and sometimes she's mad at me for something. Gave my daughters everything I thought they wanted and needed, and now you got a bunch of team around them that think they know what's best for Charli. And I have all the receipts. The problem is, if I sue someone, what's that going to do? Drag my family into a lawsuit? Emails I sent one to her business manager. He didn't respond back. Maybe I'll post that one later. We guys should look into everybody associated with Charli. These dumb don't understand that I can use AI and search 330,000 emails and I have everything. So you want to come after us?
Okay, so in Mark's version of events, the person treating Charli like a cash cow wasn't her family. It was the people around her. So during his live stream, Mark said, "Do you know how I communicate with my daughter, Charli? Through her lawyer." Yeah, I mean, that's a nightmare. Honestly, I think there's so many aspects of this story that's a nightmare. But, Mark went on to explain that he had recently spoken with Charli's lawyer and had been told that she was doing okay. But an interesting part of this live stream is, first he says how much he wants Charli back.
We're destroyed, man. We're freaking devastated. We want Charli back. We love her.
Then he follows it up by implying that she's playing a victim.
I think people and therapists try to create this narrative that it's the parents' fault. You think a lot of people want to be victims, and sometimes you just, sometimes you're just not a victim. Sometimes you happen to get super lucky and you have a silver spoon in your mouth and your dad is working so you can have all the things that you have.
Okay, dude, which is it? Like, do you want her back, or is she just doing the whole silver spoon thing? I don't fully understand the strategy here. Like, if Mark was trying to convince people that this wasn't just internet gossip, he kind of accomplished the opposite by confirming the only way he talks to his daughter is by her attorney. Regardless, I mean, the allegations themselves may be unproven, but Mark's response confirms something else. There is clearly something happening, and you don't just start communicating through lawyers because everything's going great. You don't publicly say that you want your daughter back if you just had a minor disagreement at Thanksgiving dinner. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I guess something obviously changed. And I guess while all of this was unfolding, Charli wasn't exactly giving fans a lot of clarity either. So the same day the whole thing exploded, she posted a TikTok featuring herself with visibly bloodshot eyes. And I guess the caption read, "I'll be back dancing later. I'm depressed. Leave me alone." Which should probably just go into the Hall of Fame for vague posting, because it answers kind of something, but also nothing at all. Like, one could assume this was about the family drama, but you don't really know for certain. So at the end of the day, like, nobody in the public really knows. And of course, Charli didn't elaborate. So while Mark is doing live streams, answering comments and telling people that he has receipts, Charli was pretty much just staying silent, which kind of left fans trying to piece together what was going on. And then a few days later, another report dropped that made the situation even harder to ignore. So on June 4th, People magazine published a report confirming that Charli was officially out of the Be Happy snacks. And again, Be Happy snacks is the family snack company that they launched in 2023. And the name itself comes from Dixie's song Be Happy. So now, according to People magazine, Charli was no longer involved with the company. Her parents, Mark and Heidi, were still a part of the business, and while Dixie's exact role wasn't entirely clear, she had been promoting the brand as recently as November of 2025. Meanwhile, Charli was gone, and again, photos of Charli were still featured throughout the company's website. So still, after formally leaving, she's still indirectly helping them sell popcorn by just being on the front page. But I guess this is where things get even more confusing, because around the same time, TMZ reported that Charli's departure wasn't some dramatic thing. According to their sources, the separation was a former amicable separation from D'Amelio Brands and D'Amelio Family LLC that everyone agreed to at the time. And if that's accurate, the timeline gets really weird, because TMZ claims the process started in March 2025 and was fully completed by November of 2025, meaning Charli had allegedly been out of the business for more than 6 months before this whole public thing happened. So if the separation was amicable and everyone agreed to it, what's going on right now? Why are they only talking to each other through lawyers? And I guess this brings us to where the story stands today, and why the biggest question in this entire situation still doesn't have an answer. So a family that became famous together, built businesses together, made millions of dollars together, now appears to be trying to figure out what happens when one member wants to go a completely different direction. So for now, the popcorn company still exists. Mark is still denying the allegations. Charli is still staying silent, and I guess everyone else is kind of wondering, okay, what's going on? I feel like the biggest bombshell here is the allegations about the money. If I was going to be a betting man, I would bet something happened there. Regardless though, it seems like this is kind of what happens when your kid accidentally becomes the family business. Like, just think how weird this situation is. Because like, Charli wasn't some like child actor whose parents, you know, were driving them to auditions and signing contracts and doing all this stuff for years, like a long grind for this to finally happen. No, she just started doing TikTok dances for fun, and then suddenly was like being invited to runways and had 100 million followers on TikTok. That is unbelievable. She probably has the record from being absolutely nobody to being, you know, one of the most famous people, at least during the pandemic era, in the shortest amount of time. And then in the midst of this, when your daughter's standing there telling you that she's exhausted, as a parent, are you actually acting as a parent, or are you acting as a manager going, no, you can do more brand deals. We got to strike while the iron's hot. You're relevant now. You got to do these brand deals while we can get paid a lot for them. Like, I don't know. It's a slippery slope. Now, obviously, I can't put words into their mouths. I don't know what actually happened. What we saw was what we saw on the reality TV show, and I guess we have a whole bunch of rumors and speculations around that. So we just have to deal with very limited information for now. But I feel like the quote that I keep going back to is Charli's quote saying, if I wanted to quit, now they don't have a job. That's a lot of pressure for your teenager. So, hey, I mean, maybe the money allegations are true. Maybe they're not. Maybe one day somebody will release some sort of receipts so we can actually find out what's actually going on. But regardless of what happened financially, it seems pretty clear that Charli felt a lot of pressure for a very long time. And honestly, if you're 22 years old and you're trying to figure out who you are on the outside, and you've spent what, the last 6 years in the spotlight, maybe it is time to take a little break. Because I mean, hey, at the end of the day, especially when you're a young adult now, you should be living your life for yourself, and then finding the things that give you purpose in life, and then get your joy in life from your purposes, and avoid falling into the trap of getting your joy and happiness from dopamine. You should get that from purpose. Regardless though, thank you guys for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. You can also get one of these bad boys, gamersubs.gg/Atozy. They're only for sale for a couple more days, and they're gone forever. See you guys in the next video. Peace.